empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, 8 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday night. We're running live right into the Ohio State at Illinois basketball game. Tips off at 7 o'clock. I'm still in football mode. We got a lot of recruiting news going on, some winter conditioning nuggets, all kinds of good stuff for you guys today. We're going to break down some of the films. We are offering guys like crazy out on the road. The coaches are all out on the road, crisscrossing the country as they count down the minutes before the dead period starts and we get to the second signing day. So a lot of activity, a lot of craziness. The metamorphosis of the new team from 2022 to 2023 is here. It is going on every day in the WAC. Players are trying to figure out how to get better, how to win spots, how to improve, how to get over the hump and get to the national championship. And with the talent we have, we think we can get it done. So, as always, we're very thankful and we're grateful for you guys. Oop, I got a different camera working here. So we appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys for tuning in with us. We always enjoy doing this every night. This has been a blast. If you enjoy this video, click like, subscribe. As always, we are going to be grinding on these every single night, coming up with content, and it is a blast to do. With that being said, got my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's got a big basketball game tonight. Lots of Ohio State football stuff going on. So it doesn't seem like there's much of an off season. Seems like spring football's right around the corner. We're gonna be kicking it off before you know it.
Yeah, it's really it's a crazy time right now because we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got a lot of the winter conditioning thing is really big. I don't think people realize how big it is with some of these kids that are trying to earn jobs, win jobs, do their thing. It's a big deal. So yeah, and then the coaches are out crisscrossing the country, trying to get these last offers, trying to see some 2025 kids, some of the young kids. So, but what are your thoughts as the team moves forward? Going into here, you know, I've heard a lot about Joe Royer through the first couple weeks of conditioning. He looks great. Again, tough season last year with his mom passing away. Who are some guys that you're looking forward to stepping up for spring ball?
Well, I'm looking for a couple of offensive linemen to step up and do some things, and I like Zen Mikulski to kind of step up and maybe seize that left tackle position. I think he's a guy that they're really optimistic about. They really they want him to be good. They think he can be good. If he can be good, and that enables them to not shuffle the line as much, that would be, a huge step for him. Donnie Jackson could stay at left guard. They could, potentially move Matt Jones into center and, really solidify that left side of the line. But he's a guy that I'm looking at. And the other one's Tegra. Tegra Shabola is a guy that I just keep hearing good things about him. I know he came in, people were a little skeptical about the offer, a little skeptical about, whether he was going to have the conditioning, the strength, the knowledge of the game to be able to step in and play early. But he did play early. He came in before just about anybody, got some run, and has continued that into the bowl prep and now into winter conditioning. So I really am looking for those two guys to be kind of my stalwarts on the line that should step up and really kind of present some really interesting offensive line battles, because there's a lot of guys and just a few spots to fill, and that's a key position. So it's going to be fun to watch that.
Yeah, right now I kind of feel like who's the sixth guy going to be? Is it going to be Enoch? Is it going to end up being Zen? I think ideally they want to keep Donnie at left guard, ideally. But if Zen can't do it, he'll be the guy up at left tackle. I think that the new kid Cutler is a kid they're going to try at center versus Matt Jones. I think that in an ideal world, when you have two new tackles, if you could put two veteran guards next to him, it makes their lives easier with Matt Jones at right guard and Donnie at left guard. But it just depends on if those guys can and want to get it done, because it's going to be tough sledding. It's going to be one of those things where these guys got to go against JT and Jack Sawyer every day, so they're going to get broke off in practice. And Zen, I'm sure, has seen those guys before, and so is Josh. But now you're the guy. Like they're not taking their turns versus DeWand and Paris anymore. They're taking all their turns versus you, and that's a big step up when all of a sudden you have to go against the first round guys instead of the second guys. So it is interesting. What's up, Ed? We got Cade Weston. This is a great question. Cade asks, if Zen steps up, does that solve all of our line problems? Well, I think it would help. Obviously, you want his length at tackle more than you want Donnie's athleticism, but the guys have to prove they can do it over the season. I always think that realistically, you hope that you have 7, 8 guys that can play in the room. I mean, everybody acts like, oh, we've got, we don't have enough tackles. We don't have 6 tackles in the room. But I don't know if I've ever seen a team that's had 6 tackles that were ready to go that year in the room. Maybe the team from 2 years ago were, when everybody complained that we played 4 tackles, and guess what? They're all going to be NFL draft picks, and I believe all of them left early except for Thayer. So I mean, when you have all these great players and they all leave early, it's really hard to replenish it at a position like offensive line, because offensive line is a developmental position. Generally, in a perfect world, Jim Bowman used to say that he didn't want his guys to play generally until year 3. As in like red shirt. Then second year you kind of get in the rotation a little bit, and then year 3 when you're a redshirt sophomore is when you take a starting spot. Like that was kind of his model. Because if you're starting a bunch of freshmen out there, they're either phenoms like Orlando Pace, or you've just been terrible with recruiting. Because if you're starting a lot of freshmen on the O line, that means that again it's either phenoms, or more likely you just missed on everybody that's in front of them. So generally, I think you get the old man strength as you hang around the facility. You're there for a couple years, and you just kind of grind along with it. But it's I don't know. I think if Zen can win that left tackle, I think Justin Fry would be ecstatic. I think Ryan Day would be ecstatic. I think you want the taller, lengthier body to be your left tackle, as opposed to Donnie and and Cutler, who's the new kid who just got here from Louisiana Monroe. But I don't know. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they rotate those two in the different line combinations, because I think that's the thing that's tough is Justin Fry wants to give these guys all opportunities to compete to start, but eventually you got to start developing chemistry. So there's like a fine line between how many guys take turns with the 1s and 2s. Where do you put them at? Who's kind of their partner? Like tackle guards. They like to work together so that they develop some chemistry together. And I think that that's something that Justin's going to have. He's going to have to figure out quick. And if Zen steps in and just plays well and plays consistent, football, especially in pass protection, then the job's his. But that's completely up to him. Nevada, you got any thoughts on if Zen steps up, does that solve all of our line problems?
Yeah, I just don't think we have line problems. I think that we've got some opportunities. We got a couple of guys that are going to be competing for some spots, but I mean, you're literally returning 5, bringing 4 guys that have started games at Ohio State, and another guy started 20 games at Louisiana Monroe back. That's a pretty good spot to be in right there to start with. So I'm just not seeing the difficulty on the offensive line, but I am interested to see who kind of steps up and who emerges from from a very, very busy room right now, because you've got a lot of guys in there that just have not had the opportunity to play yet, and I guarantee you there's going to be guys that can play that are going to go on to long NFL careers that are just sitting in that room right now, haven't played a snap yet. So we'll see, but this is spring ball is the time for that, and spring and into the summer and then into the fall. So it's go time for a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that I don't think that there's perceived, everyone acts like the line is going to be this Achilles heel. I've never seen that. I mean, again, the last time that we had a line that was like this, that had just a very small amount of starts going into the season, it was 14, and we won the national title. So to me, I kind of just let the chips fall where they may. Obviously, these guys make a lot of money to develop these guys, Justin Fry and the GAs and Mickey Marotti and those guys. Their job's to get these guys mentally ready to go. And I mean, it's not necessarily for the Monday morning workout or to play Youngstown State. It's to be ready to go to South Bend. It's to be ready to go to Wisconsin at night, which will be miserable. Go to Michigan and win. Those are the games where these guys make their money. Like Justin Fry and Mickey, they make their money for those games, not for anything else. So it's going to be one of these experiences where I know that they're going to turn the heat up on these kids, kind of the pressure burst pipes mentality, and see what these kids are made of. Because I think it's going to be fascinating to watch and see who ends up making it and who kind of rises to the top. Because again, I've told people that we're worried about the tackle situation and whatever. I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you're going to have a handful of tackles that can play. And if you have too many of them, they're going to transfer. So, depth, as I always say, is an illusion in 2023 college football with the transfer portal. Until they ratchet it down, or they say that you can only transfer once a year or whatever, you're never really comfortable. I mean, Ryan Jacoby literally played and practiced in fall camp for us 2 years ago, and was like our second team tackle or third team tackle. And then he transferred and went to Pitt, and like in the same season was playing for Pitt. It's like an NFL move, where a guy is on one team one week and another team the other week. And that kills your depth, because Ryan Jacoby would probably be our starting right tackle right now, or left tackle, or whatever. But instead, he's starting at Pitt, and he's going to be a 3-year starter, because he started the year that he left us. He started some last year, and he's probably going to start this year. So again, that's just part of the game of college football. Some kids feel like they're slighted. Some kids don't want to wait. Every kid that plays college football wants to play. So, again, these guys are looking for opportunities to better themselves, and it's tough sometimes, because I was in that situation. I remember Antonio Pittman was in that situation where Pitt didn't play much in 04, in the opener, and he was salty. And I mean, you guys talk crazy sometimes when they come off a game where they don't play as much as they think they should, and they're behind guys that really aren't that good. And Pitt was in that situation, and he was talking crazy, and I'm like, dude, like, you just gotta let it see how it goes, and we'll figure it out, and we'll go from there.
Kirk, on that topic, can you think about how different the history of Ohio State football would be if you had transfer on demand and the portal and all the stuff throughout the history of Ohio State football? I mean, it just blows your mind to think about all the guys. We could have 4 shows that we just talk about guys that would have gone and would never have played at Ohio State, would have never waited their turn, would have never, waited for that legendary moment or whatever it was. The portal and on-demand transfer changes everything, and as a fan, you got to get used to it. Boy, the storied history of Ohio State football would look a heck of a lot different if guys could have just up and left whenever they wanted to.
Well, I think that's the hard part, is kids make emotional decisions. They make bad decisions. Kids have bad influences in their lives flat out that tell them, hey, coach doesn't like you, hey, whatever. And guys take off. They head for the hills. I mean, like, I love Thaddeus Gibson. He was one of my favorite teammates. He was a great player. And Thad, like, walked off the field twice, like, during the season in 06. And he was, being a sourpuss and being a baby, and took his ball and went home twice, and was threatening to go to Tennessee and Purdue. And that happens all the time, even on the current Buckeyes. Guys walk off the field, and they pout. But again, now they can jump in the transfer portal superhighway and be out. So it's a whole different ball of wax than back in the day when, it's like, well, if I transfer, do I want to go play scout team for a year? Because that's like the ultimate punishment, is you get to go play the show team for a year, and then you become eligible. Or I go play at Youngstown State, a 1AA school, and I can play next year. So that's kind of the funny thing. The interesting thing is, like, the thought of having to sit out a year and basically be a scrub as an upperclassman, it just isn't. And that's what kept a lot of guys in their spots, and there wasn't as much shopping. The tampering wasn't as prevalent, because obviously it was a lot bigger ask to transfer out. But yeah, I think that it's like when you said that there was 100 faces that flashed before my eyes of guys that I know would have transferred out. Like, I mean, guys I played O-line with that came in as heralded guys that didn't play ever. And I mean, would they have left? Absolutely. Like, if they're in year 3 or 4, and the guys that are on alert are guys that get homesick, and guys that get passed by guys that have, like, less, they're freshmen, and they, if you're a sophomore and a freshman passes you on the depth chart, then that's kind of a death knell, unless the guy tears his ACL. So you're going to be stuck behind him, and those are the guys that would be out. And again, that's kind of, like with Ryan Jacoby, it's like all of a sudden they make concessions to move Thayer to guard and Dewan to right tackle, and Ryan Jacoby's still with the 2s, and he never really got a shake to supplant Dewan. And he's like, you know what? Why fight that fight when I don't have to? I can go to Pitt and start, So that's kind of, Max Ray. Again, Max Ray was built like a perfect left tackle. Never realized any of it just because he got hurt and he medicaled, and he's a graduate assistant at Toledo, or he was last year anyways, for the football team. But, those 2 guys would have been our next 2 tackles in line. So when you have 3 tackles declare early, and then you have 2 tackles transfer out, it's hard to maintain your tackle depth. I'm just being real. I mean, and I have no idea why we were so poor in the portal with tackles, because honestly, like 2 wide open spots, you think it'd be the killing field, but I still don't even know if any of those guys can play. You know, when you're looking at guys from Rhode Island and UTEP and whatever, like, I mean, they still have to prove they could play big boy football, because, you know, this isn't, you're not playing Dartmouth anymore when you're, you know, when you're Rhode Island and all of a sudden you got to play against Michigan or Wisconsin. That's a big step up. So it'd be interesting to see how the kid that went to Oregon does. And
So
this
do you
is,
think do you think Cardell Jones would have stayed around had there been the portal movement back then?
there's no way you can tell, but you know, there's no way that if you got him alone that with a straight face, you could say he would have stayed, because JT passed him, and then the next year JT passed him again. So it's like, again, when a younger guy takes your spot, it's hard to stay. You're at least going to look around. And again, I think that a lot of these guys they're like coaches. They're only as faithful as their options. So if you're a coach, and you know, it's like Brian Hartline, who I've known Brian for longer than anybody listening, I'm sure. And you know, when Brian, you know, when they say, oh, he only wants to be a receiver coach for this stuff, like, there's no way, because now he's a coordinator. Because a year ago, everyone's like, oh, he just wants to coach receivers and live on his property in Ohio and do whatever. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Because Lincoln Riley is like the same age as Brian Hartline, maybe a year older, and he's making $15 million a year to go run USC. And why would Brian Hartline not aspire to be that, you know, somewhere? Maybe Ohio State, maybe somewhere else, who knows? But I think that with players, if Cardell had like a job in hand where he could go play football, like Cardell literally just signed with an indoor arena football team in Massachusetts like yesterday, some small league thing. So obviously he still has the itch to play and try to work his way back up to the show, because you don't go play indoor arena football unless you're trying to get back to the NFL somehow, some way. And you know, so if someone would have said, Cardell, you're our starter, if you come here, it's done, then I think you would have left. And I think you could say that about a guy like Justin Zwick, who, you know, Justin was, you know, a very heralded kid, a 5-star kid coming out, offered by pretty much everybody, picked Ohio State. Troy's in his class, beats him out. Like, if you're Justin and you're a quarterback and you want to play in the NFL, like, why would you not take off? I mean, I would have, just because, you know, you're trying to further your career. And if you stand there and hold your clipboard and wear like a beanie on the sideline, you know, then all of a sudden nobody's going to ever look at your film. You're not going to have any film. So to me, I think that it's just one of those things where if you go back through the annals of time, there's a lot of Ohio State guys that like Will Allen's a perfect one. Will Allen sat on the bench and played, you know, he played, you know, a mixed role as the back end safety behind Dawson Nickey, but his senior year when he was an All-American, he was unbelievable. He was so good. And then he ends up playing, you know, 14 years in the NFL or whatever it was. And, you know, would that guy have stuck around for 3 years to be a backup to Dawson Nickey? I don't know. But I mean, when he played, he was out of this world good. So that's a great question, though, because I just think that, wow. I mean, I'm just glad they didn't have it when I played, because I just, you know, I know guys that had emotions and would make decisions and would say crazy stuff, and it was always unfortunate. It was always kind of stupid, and I just think that, I don't know. It's just one of those things where you don't even want to think about it. Oh, appreciate you guys. Oh, this is a great one. Laurinaitis rumors, because Austin and Berm talked about James Laurinaitis on one of their podcasts, may return to Ohio State as an assistant linebackers coach, which would essentially probably be like the analyst thing that Coy McFarland was with Jim Knowles last year. Nevada, you know how I feel about James Laurinaitis. What would your thoughts be on the potential of James coming back? Would he come back? What do you think his role could be? But what's your positioning on that?
Well, here we've talked about this before, but James Laurinaitis wanted a role at Ohio State and reached out a number of times and didn't get any answer. So he went on and went on to Notre Dame and did his thing. So would I be excited about James Laurinaitis coming back? Absolutely. I know there's a few people that you hold in higher esteem than James. I mean, what a great representative of the university, about just everything you'd want in a kid, both on and off the field. So yeah, I'd be over the moon excited to see him come back in any capacity to Ohio State. I know that, again, he's wanted to do that for a long time, and it would be great if that was reciprocated and he was back, because that would be I think that'd be a big underrated get for Ohio State.
Well, I mean, the thing about James is, people, they're always, how can a guy not be an intern or a GA, or you can't just give former players coaching jobs or full-time jobs. And I'm like, look, I mean, Kevin Wilson, who I think is a genius and just took the Tulsa job, just gave Ryan Schwitzer, who was a receiver, played at Carolina, slot guy, played for the Cowboys, Steelers, bounced all over the NFL. Really good player. He just named him as a wide receivers coach. He's never coached before, or at least to my knowledge. Like, he retired. He might have coached a high school or an analyst somewhere, but he literally made him a full-time coach. And why? Because there's some guys that know the game inherently well that translate into being great coaches. Now, there's a lot of former players that are absolute disasters as coaches because they can't enunciate, they can't translate, why they were great into their players. But guys like Brian Hartline and James Laurinaitis could do that all day. Like, James was one of the best. You look at like their overall football IQ, their intelligence. James is absolutely off the charts, elite at that. Production, what kind of a guy is he? Is he a family guy, smart guy? I mean, James, when James was a color commentary guy, I used to text him all the time and say, look, you're really good. I hope you don't give this up, because I think you'll be one of the top guys on Fox if you stick with it. And he just kind of lost the passion for it, because, those color commentary gigs, they sound fun until you realize that you got to go do the game at Boise State on a Thursday night, and you got to leave on Tuesday morning and do the whatever. It's just like, it's a lot of travel, it's a lot of work, a lot of long hours, and it's not as gratifying as coaching. And I don't think that, frankly, James has as high of a ceiling in that as he did in coaching. But James is a fantastic kid. He's a two-time captain back before that was ever really a thing. Like, I mean, Trust didn't hand out two-time captaincies the way we do, like we do now, where we kind of hand them out like they're Pez dispensers, basically. But he, two-time captain, three-time All-American, great NFL career, great leader. I mean, everybody respected James. There isn't anybody that didn't like James Laurinaitis. So, and again, what do we need an injection of on the defensive side of the ball? Recruiting. So I know that we've got a special teams coordinator right now. I would not. I'd make James a special teams coordinator and let all the other coaches help out with it, and let James go be the Brian Hartline of the defense. Make him the all world juggernaut recruiter that Brian is, and then all of a sudden, you've got that dynamo on the defensive side of the ball. Because, I mean, face it, like, we have Larry. We didn't close any of the big defensive ends. We didn't get the linebackers that we projected. It just was one of those things where I think that if you had James and you have him kind of fill that role like Brian does, then all of a sudden you have an A+ recruiter for the linebackers, and that can make all the difference in the world going forward. As our some of the members of our defensive staff, as much as I love them, they're very long in the tooth and they're not good recruiters flat out. But yeah, I would love James to come here. I mean, it's funny because him and Brian, they both built these really nice houses, and as long as you guys, and again, you can always sell a house. Vrabel had a ridiculous house and he sold it, and he lives in Tennessee, and I'm sure his house that he has there is 10 times bigger. But that's just part of the coaching thing, man, is you never really put down roots, because in a year you can be on the road and getting a new job or getting fired, and you're never really planning your roots anywhere, which is something that was really unappealing to me. But I would love to have him come in. Dave Rice, this is great. Laurinaitis and Styles. I'm sure you mean Lorenzo Styles Jr. coming back to Columbus from Notre Dame. I could see it. I would love it. I think Lorenzo Styles Jr. is a guy that, if I was him, I'd start playing corner and just come in. You'd probably be our number 3 corner the second you got here. But I think it would be fantastic. Nevada, any further thoughts on the thought of James Laurinaitis coming back to Ohio State?
No, I think those are the kind of moves that culturally that Ryan Day could make to really kind of solidify the things. So you talk about culture and you talk about the Ohio's way of doing things, and that's the one knock on Ryan is he's not from Ohio, he's not from he's not an Ohio State guy. He's relatively new. I mean, let's if we're honest. I mean, I do this for a living. You do this for a living. When they announced Ryan Day's name as the offensive coordinator, I think we looked at each other and said, "Who's that? Let's go to the Google machine." So it's not like this was a guy that had been part of the Ohio State family, grown up through the come up through the ranks and was a hot commodity, and we snagged him. This was a guy from nowhere, from the unemployment line that Urban Meyer took, and now he's the head coach at Ohio State. So I think guys like James Laurinaitis would be a welcome addition, and would be great to see.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right. I mean, I remember vividly when you got the information that, because the thing that you got was that Chip Kelly was at the WAC, and it wasn't Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. It was Chip Kelly. You might have wrote Ryan Day, but nobody knew who Ryan Day was. But they were there visiting. There was a thought that Chip might be the new OC, and then all of a sudden it was Ryan Day, and we're like, who's Ryan Day? And again, that's just how it is. Until you're discovered, no one knows who you are, and they'd just gotten fired at San Francisco, so they were looking for a gig or whatever. And I think Chip went and did TV work for a couple years before he went to UCLA. But when we got Ryan, nobody. This wasn't like it was some slam dunk, like, oh my God, I can't believe we got Ryan Day. I mean, because there was more fanfare around getting Jim Knowles as a coordinator than there was Ryan Day, probably by 100x, because Jim Knowles ran the number 1 or 2 defense overall at Oklahoma State last year, and 57 sacks and all the gaudy numbers. So people they knew him; he was a known quantity. But when you hire a quarterback coach from the NFL, and you look at the team, and that was they had Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert, and it wasn't like they had Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and they were setting records. They stunk. So it was just okay. I guess we'll trust Urban on this one, and it turned out to be a great hire. I mean, we were good in 17, good in 18. We've been good ever since. So, but yeah, it was just interesting when all that went down. Nevada, do you think that Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers coming back will hinder CJ Hicks's progress?
Well, I think the answer undoubtedly is yes, just because if they were gone, he'd have a clearer path to the field. Having said that, Day and Knowles have both made a commitment to CJ that he's going to play this year, that they've got a role for him, and that he's going to see the field, and it's not going to be another wasted year where he's sitting there. Now, I'm not sure exactly, is that the jack? Is that a hybrid safety position? Or are they going to go to more 3 linebacker look? What are they going to do? But they've made a commitment to him and Styles that they're going to play a lot this year. So, we'll see. But does it hinder his progress? Yeah, absolutely, because you're returning, Tommy Eichenberg. When you start talking about Tommy Eichenberg, you got to start talking about him in the same, somebody compared him to Steve Tovar. I mean, absolutely there with Tovar, but I think he's right there with A.J. Hawk and some of the other great linebackers. I mean, you're talking about a guy to have 120 tackles. He's going to be a first-team All-American, the favorite to win the Butkus this year. And, Tommy is really, really talented. So, to have a guy like that back, yeah, I think it's great for CJ from a standpoint. He's going to get a chance to watch him work for one more year. But no, Day and Knowles have both made a point. They've gone to him. They've had these meetings. They told him he's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the spring. So I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I totally agree on Tommy, and I think he's got a massive chip on his shoulder because a lot of people talked a lot of mess about him last year, and a lot of people said he stunk and he wasn't any good. And guys like that got a lot of anger and pride, they don't forget that stuff. When people, now all of a sudden he's balling and people are coming back around and saying, how great he is. And Tommy's the kind of guy that he's got a long memory. So I like that about Tommy. He keeps receipts on some of these guys that said he should have been benched or replaced or sent off into the ether, because that's just, part of playing at Ohio State is when you're not being coached well and your production isn't what it should be. And then all of a sudden you get a guy that, gets guys lined up correctly and unleashes you. All of a sudden you turn to the player that a lot of people thought he was in high school. So I love Tommy. I think that he's easily the favorite to win the Butkus next year, just because he's going to have this massive amount of hype going into the season. He'll be a preseason first-team All-American by all the preseason magazines. All the preseason, ESPN, they'll all have him as first-team All-American. So I think as long as he doesn't, no injuries, and everything stays clean and he produces at the same rate, he's easily a first-team All-American. He's easily a Butkus winner. I think he should have been a Butkus finalist this year, and I just think that we do a really poor job of promoting our guys for major awards because, you look at some of the guys we had and where they're going to get drafted and how productive they were, and we didn't have anybody up for major award other than CJ. So, Marvin didn't win the Bolitnikoff, which, again, I don't think we promote him enough for as good as he is. We let a kid from Tennessee beat him, which is almost insane, because if Marvin came out for the draft this year, he'd probably be the number one receiver as a sophomore because he was that good. But, just is what it is. It's kind of a systematic problem within Ohio State that I think we do a really poor job of promoting our guys. Nevada, this is a great question. If you had to restart Ohio State football program today and draft any Buckeye player, so no coaches, past or present, who is your franchise cornerstone pick? That is a great question.
I mean, for me, it's easy. It's the guy that the much maligned Kirk Barton hated Orlando Pace at left tackle is the guy that I would take as my franchise cornerstone pick right there. I think left tackle is the most important position on the field.
Oh my God.
The most dominant player in college football history, the most dominant player in Ohio State football history. And I'm going with the Big O as my left tackle, is my cornerstone pick.
That's your first pick. You're taking a left tackle.
I'm taking a left tackle, yes.
Oh my God, this is hard because I thought about going left tackle, but I know that like tackles don't win championships, quarterbacks do. And it's like, do I go with the best Ohio State quarterback of all time in Troy Smith, or do I go with the best, pro? Like if I had to start a pro team tomorrow, I'd probably go with Justin Fields, just because I love guys that can run. Again, the Bears stunk. They were literally the worst team in the entire NFL this year. They have the first pick in the draft, and he still almost made the Pro Bowl. He was like right on the fringe of the Pro Bowl. So he's really good. And again, it depends on, this is a great question because I don't know what kind of talent I've got around him, but if my quarterback has to run for his life, because again, I think it's probably like an expansion draft where you're getting a bunch of practice squatters, but this is a really hard question. It'd probably have to be Troy or Justin. I think you have to start with the quarterback. I played tackle. Tackles are valuable, but quarterbacks they're OP in the words of Funky. They're very OP. So I'd have to be Justin or Troy for me. And I'd probably honestly go Justin just because he's a 4-3 guy. And Justin, when you can run a 4-3, or even Terrell, I guess would be in the consideration, because it changes everything. When you can run and throw and teams got to defend you like that, it's really tough. I mean, I just think that's the thing. So go ahead. I know you're dying to say something to my thought on who I would pick of the all-time Ohio State team, and I say Justin Fields, but I'd love for your thoughts on that.
No, I'd like to apologize to Orlando for any slight that you feel from Kirk Barton not taking you with the number one pick. I took you, Orlando. I want you to know that Nevada Buck supported you in your importance as left tackle. I think we're going to be able to find a quarterback because I look at the quarterbacks I could pick for Ohio State, and I'm like, man, I take senior year Bobby Hoyne, definitely Troy Smith, the Wolverine killer, Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud circa Georgia game. Like we got a lot of quarterbacks that we could throw in there that has the big stuff, but there was only one Big O, and that's. But again, do you take a healthy Nick Bosa or a healthy Joey Bosa, or one of my favorites, Will Smith, the defensive end, or Chase Young? The year Chase Young had, he was pretty dominant there as well. So yeah, so many choices, but I'm gonna stick with the Big O.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't argue. Again, I don't really know the format of this. Is this like a draft where it's like me versus you drafting an Ohio State team? That's something we should do on a podcast. Or is this like if I had to pick one guy and then it's like you get one guy and then everybody else across the team is a bunch of C's, like C overall players, and you can pick one guy to make an A+ player? Where do you put it at? I mean, that's kind of how I approached it. Because again, like if this was like an NFL draft, and I said, all right, Nevada, you're gonna have a team. Everybody's got to be a bunch of average players, a bunch of practice squatters. It's gonna be like the '99 Browns, and you get to add one Ohio State Buckeye to that team. So say that's what it is. You have the '99 Browns, and no Tim Couch before the draft, the expansion team, where it's just a bunch of literally the worst players in the league, unprotected in the expansion draft, selected. Again, a guy famously told me when he didn't go after the Las Vegas Knights franchise that $250 million is a lot of money to suck for 10 years. That was a famous quote that I heard one time. So imagine you have that roster except it's football, and you could pick one player. Are you still picking Orlando Pace?
Well, that's different though. That's a completely different premise there.
Well, that was the premise I drafted on.
Yeah, well, I think you just kind of made that up to make up for your Orlando Pace slight right
oh
there.
My
but
God.
yeah, clearly, if you can only pick one guy, then you pick a quarterback because at least you can win a game or two or something like that. I'm assuming you've got like a reasonable roster around where that you get other picks or you get other players there. I'm assuming it's not just all Connor Smith and whoever else on the offensive line there. So no, I think
I mean, that was my thinking behind taking Justin Fields, because I'm like, look, if I got Kent State and I could add one guy to Kent State, I'm taking Justin Fields because he can at least run for his life. Because again, the Bears literally went like 2-14 this year, and the worst team in the league, and he ran for like 1,100 yards. He like literally almost broke the record for most rushing yards in a season. So I mean, that is absolutely dominant. And he had the worst skill guys I've ever seen: Chase Claypool and these other turds, Equinemius St. Brown and Cole Kemet. And I mean, those guys aren't, if he had Devontae Adams or somebody, they probably go to the playoffs, but that was my premise. So, and we've got a Chris Carter, we've got a Dwayne Haskins, we've got a Chase Young. Guys, in the comments of this video, I need to hear, who would you pick to start your Ohio State football team? Because that is a great question. Well, that might be my favorite question ever, because Nevada gets to slander me, I get to defend my position, and I get to watch him pivot like he's Deion Sanders in a back pedal. So it's great. But seriously, I really love you guys for questions like that, because that is really, really thought provoking. Because again, I don't know the right answer. Like, if it's who's the most dominant player we've ever had, yeah, of course it's Orlando. But I played. Orlando could pancake a guy every single play. And if the quarterback can't get the ball off, then it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just telling you, like, I played with Troy Smith, and it's like, we don't have Troy Smith, I don't have 4 pairs of gold pants. So just being a realist.
Well,
like, I know how OP the QB could be. Especially the QB run. Go ahead.
The same question was for Ohio State basketball. If you only could pick one Ohio State basketball player for your team, who would it be? And the rest of the lineup is Kirk Barton, circa 6th grade, tall kid, kind of playing junior high basketball with this other player.
I mean, I think that there's 2 guys. It's Jerry Lucas or it's Havlicek, right? I mean, they're both in the Hall of Fame. I mean, how do you argue against those 2? Are you gonna say Odin?
I might. I mean,
that was the only other guy I thought of, because he was like 7'2", and I mean, but he just was so brittle. Like, and I mean, Greg Oden, if you haven't met him, is one of the nicest guys, one of the quietest, like just a guy that it was just so sad what happened to him because his body gave out. But Greg Oden is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life. So I can't say anything bad about Greg. He obviously was a guy that nobody in the universe questioned when he got picked over Kevin Durant. And again, was he a bust? I mean, by definition, yes. But, his body gave out. He had microfracture on his knee. And some of these guys are so big that their bodies just can't hold up. Sam Bowie was like that. Like, Sam Bowie wasn't terrible, but he broke his leg like 4 times. So all of a sudden, like, with Jordan and Olajuwon, like, around you, it really stinks, because those guys are maybe the best players ever at their positions. But I don't know. For me, it'd be Lucas, I would say.
Yeah, but it's funny because you talk about, like, I have this discussion before about Greg Oden, a bust, and to me a bust is a guy that comes to the NBA and can't play, and that would be like an Anthony Bennett or something like that with the Cavaliers took with the first pick. I mean, those are the ones where I'm like, that's a bust. Odin wasn't a bust. Odin just broke down. But my best part about the Odin thing was on our message board at the time when Odin committed, there was. And I'm talking, there were hundreds of posts about this, how the Odin thing was a package deal and they had to take that scuzzy point guard, Mike Conley, along with them. But Conley wasn't worthy of an Ohio State offer, but it was worth it to get that Odin kid. But Conley was a throw-in and you had to take him as well. And that Conley kid turned out to be a pretty good player.
Oh, my God. I mean, the amazing thing about Conley is there was a point in time over the last, 5 years, 6 years, he was the highest paid player in the entire NBA. And I mean, we had LeBron, Kobe, Giannis, like, all in the league. and Mike Conley was the highest paid player in the NBA for like, I don't know if it was for a day or a month or a year or until someone got their next supermax deal, but think about that. Like, think about what it would be like to be in the modern NBA, and at one point when LeBron James is still in his prime, you're the highest, you're paid more than he is. Like, good. I mean, God bless him. Because again, another guy that I've met, and credit to Thad Matta. Thad Matta got done about as dirty of a coach as I've ever seen. It was him and Trest are probably the two biggest gentlemen we've ever had in the program. One of the nicest guys I've ever been around. And he brought in, Odin and Conley. And I've met both those guys, talked to them, sat and watched a football game with Conley one day at the stadium. Like, the nicest guys you could ever meet. Like, guys that you'd just be so proud to meet and say such great Buckeyes, and couldn't be nicer. And so it's funny because Conley would be, again, if you had all Kirk Bartons on the floor and you could put Conley out there, I mean, he's a guy that's pretty devastating, and he's had a long career. Now, again, if I go through the rank and file, and Jerry Lucas was, probably the best player in school history, I think, him or Havlicek. I mean, I started at the NBA Hall of Fame and worked my way backwards, and those guys are both in it. Then you look at the greats of Ohio State, and Odin's kind of the outlier because he was so heralded and so great, but he was, he was hurt at Ohio State, he was hurt in the league, but his pinnacle was like as high as anybody ever. But he just never really got to realize it because he was hurt. He's kind of like the last of the Mohicans when it comes to the back centers that that don't really exist in the NBA anymore. But who would you have for your final pick? I'm just gonna say Jerry Lucas because he's like one of my favorite human beings I've ever met. When I've talked to him, I just always get blown away by how smart he is. And obviously he was like LeBron James before LeBron James. But who would you go with?
I'm going with Bronny James Jr. I'm going with Bronny because Bronny to Ohio State. They're seems like we're in the final three. What Oregon, USC, and Ohio State, or who's the final three for his?
Well, yeah, I think you nailed it. Oregon, SC, and Ohio State. I assumed he was going to Oregon because if I played basketball and I was playing for 1 year before I went pro, I'd go to Oregon just because why not get the Nike thing going early? But I don't know. Oh my God, this is great. This is my favorite comment we've ever got. Chris, I appreciate you, dude. Because this will be near and dear to Ken's heart, or excuse me, Nevada's heart. I'd take 5 Kirk Bartons on the floor if the game was energy drink consumption.
Oh my gosh!
Shout out Celsius. Yeah. Need a sponsorship. Hey, you want me to crack another one? I'll do it.
Oh yeah, Chris, thank you. Oh no, oh no, please don't do it. But okay. No, yeah, Bronny James Jr. The SC people really think they got that one on lockdown. So it'll be interesting to see if Holtman can pull that off. I mean, it would be exciting to see him come to Ohio State just from a standpoint of everything that LeBron could bring and just the whole circus that would be involved. That would bring a lot of attention to Ohio State basketball. And look, if LeBron had his wishes, he'd have his kid at Ohio State. He loves Ohio State. Whether you like LeBron James, hate LeBron James, or grateful to LeBron James for bringing a championship to Cleveland or whatever it is, he would bring an awful lot of attention to Ohio State basketball, and that would be a really great thing. And the fact that we're even in the consideration is terrific, and I hope it happens.
It'd be interesting. I mean, I really I've met Chris Holtman, really nice guy, friendly guy. He just had an extension, so I don't think he's going anywhere. So, would he trust him to play for Holtman with all of the turbulence around the program right now? But again, I mean, it's not like Oregon and USC are exactly Duke and Carolina at this point. But I don't know. It'll be fascinating. It'd be interesting because, when you're LeBron and you're on the road as an NBA player, it's not like you're going to get to go to a ton of Bronny James, but if he plays at SC, obviously you're going to get to see more than if he's playing at Ohio State. Because if you got, a home and home and they're playing on a Tuesday night, you might be able to jet over there and watch your kid play. And I don't even know how important that is. I'd imagine it would be. If I was a dad, I would insist that he goes to USC or, I mean, even Oregon. If you've got a day, you could take the private jet up to Oregon and check it out and have Uncle Phil fly up. But I don't know. I always think that families first. And if you can, if I got to go to college for 1 year, I'm going to SC, man. Come on, you crazy? I'm not going to Ohio and freezing not whatever off. But if it's all equal, I'm going to SC if I'm Bronny James Jr. because he's going to be one and done, and his dad is going to orchestrate some sort of package deal to be the next guy, and and get him. His goal is to play with Bronny. Like he wants to have Bronny on the Lakers or wherever he is a free agent at, package deal, play for a year together. So that'll be fascinating to see if, because again, you're getting LeBron at the tail end. He's going to be 39 this year, so he's not getting any younger. He's not a spring chicken. He's probably got a year or two left, and then he's going to be kaput. But be interesting to see if he does get a year with Bronny, because Bronny's not going to be a high draft pick. He's not going to be a first round. He's not going to be a lottery guy. Does a team pick Bronny to lure LeBron for a year to get the ticket sales and get an injection of life into the team? I don't know.
I mean, a lot of people, I'm telling you, a lot of people think that he's going to be a lottery pick just for that reason. Because you got to remember, LeBron isn't exactly fading right now. Have you seen his stats? The year he's having right now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's obviously he's unbelievable. So if you're really if you're getting the draft pick with the idea that you're getting Bronny, but you're also going to get LeBron, I mean, it sets up. Nothing like this has ever happened before in the NBA, and it's somebody's going to take a shot at him high because you get bad, and that's going to be just intoxicating for some of these teams to have a chance to get LeBron James. Even like I said, even at the tail end of his career, I mean, he's still a 25-point a game scorer. So I mean, it's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah, and if you're a team like the Knicks or someone that's just trying to get another injection of life, because the thing about LeBron is if you get him, you're going to get a bunch of players that are decent to good players that'll come on league minimum, and he does that everywhere he goes, where he'll sign a bunch of guys that they take less money to try to win a championship with LeBron. So again, it'll be fascinating to watch how it goes out with Bronny, where he goes. The amount of pandemonium, because again, if he goes I would love if he came to Ohio State, because guess what, we're going to be following basketball a lot more with Bronny James Jr. here than we do now. The game's actually just tipped off, so we're going to wrap this thing up. Great podcast again. Thank you guys for the questions. You guys really carried this one tonight. There's some fantastic questions and really makes the content a blast, because you guys come up with some really good stuff that Nevada and I get to debate, like the merits of Justin Fields versus Orlando Pace, which I never dreamed I'd be talking about today, but it is what it is. I like running quarterbacks, and I cannot lie. So this is what I'm used to. Nevada, any final thoughts as we wrap this, as the game has just tipped off?
Orlando, I think you're great. I think you're a great Buckeye, great player, and I salute you. And when I go by your tree next time, I'm gonna throw an extra little bit of fertilizer on it to make sure that that Buckeye tree stays nice and healthy, unlike the Barton bush that's dying right now.
Mine's like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It's got no ornaments on it. It's got no leaves. I got guys going by putting herbicide on it, killing it. Like, it is what it is. It's tough, man. It's a tough nut, baby. The Buckeyes are poisonous to us. We're good. So, but we appreciate you guys. We're gonna wrap this because we moved it up an hour. So if there's a basketball game ever, just for you guys' knowledge, we try to do these at 6 instead of 7. Just because we like to get these things in and get them wrapped up. So appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the basketball game. See you guys on BuckeyesScoop.com.